So, good morning. And we learned yesterday that basically Abraham was never going to learn that he's supposed to do good. And it's really is because it's the first time God has ever put somebody to the test, to test them. It's the beginnings of, say, sarcasm or humor from God. Which would be a very relaxed, unimportant uh, conversation with us, but testing us to see whether we would do bad when we shouldn't do bad is the first time it's ever happened. So that's why it's so extremely serious. And perhaps the lack of experience of it ever happening before then meant that Abraham wouldn't learn that he was not supposed to ever follow the command of killing his own son, but it did show that God would make you, uh, you know, sort of he would test you, it's saying, by playing a trick to see if you would do wrong, and then say, don't do wrong, you idiot, to to make sure that you don't, when God's not there, that you don't do wrong by your own volition, by your own power and energy. So he's saying what not to do before you do something wrong. And then not only what he to do in life, but also be careful, don't do this. So it's an extreme test. People say it's the most extreme test that's ever happened to a human being, probably. And in fact, people relate it to the sacrifice of God's hero, Jesus. That actually we never get over it until Jesus completely, as a human race, where we want to do wrong sometimes, and only by seeing the result of humanity doing wrong that we are sorry and we know the real difference between wrong and right, and we know how to do right in purity for the first time. So that is the message of this test, to show that it is wrong what Abraham's doing, even though he can't understand it because of his lack of experience. And it takes about 2,000 years. I think some people say it's 800 years. This is outside of the Bible. Historians have tried to calculate from the story, which is the Bible is a historical and spiritual and moral and poetic story. It's all these things. So it's a whole load of different genres of subjects collected together in one book. And that's why it's the most popular book in the world. Say the greatest book in the world. Anyway, there are many other ones as well that people will talk about. So let's look at it in that perspective. We'll carry on now. So Abraham is not going to learn exactly what is wrong in life, but he's still, as you can see, and most people see him, is better than most. So he's an amazing character, So here we are. Abraham went back to his men, and together they returned to Beersheba, and there Abraham remained. After this, Abraham was told, Milcah has borne sons to your brother Nahor. Uz his firstborn, then his brother Buz, and Kemuel, father of Abram, and Kesed, Hazor, Pildash, Jidlaph, and Bethuel, and a daughter, Rebekah, has been born to Bethuel. So this is people back where he's from, his brother and his father. So Milcah must be his mother. Has borne sons to your brother Nahor. So his mother must have slept with her son. Crazy. Or maybe it was a different mother. So they must have had different, it must have depended on practical, in the poverty that they lived, subsistence farming meant that they were poor and people could die and live and things like that. And they were very down to earth right throughout the Old Testament compared to us now with our technology and our, much greater miracles. Imagine how down to earth you are if your life is built, just destined just to dig this soil in this plant, and that's, and grow this food, and that's how you survive, and that's your life. None of this technology, none of this bright lights that you see here from the miracles and the knowledge that we have developed over these 2,500 years. So we're lucky, but we struggle with this responsibility of so much goodness. Some people I have a brother who loves to just live like the Old Testament, growing things in a simple way. But it's called The Good Life, from a TV show. But it means life is simpler, and you have different moral decisions to make. And with Jesus, when it started again, we got the opportunity to make moral decisions of any kind. We got that ability by the miracle of Jesus coming back to life, and who he was, a perfect hero from God, destroying death. Because if he wasn't a perfect hero from God, by miracle, by the Holy Spirit of God, then he would not be a hero, and he would not conquer death by his own giving up to our evil, like Abraham's evil in this story. Thank you very much. So that's the Christian message, but we'll carry on now. These 8 Milcah bore to Abraham's brother Nahor, his concubine, whose name was Reumah, also bore him sons, Tebah, Gaham, Tahash, and Maacah. So this is good news for him. Children is always good news, isn't it? In a simple society. Okay. Sarah lived for 127 years and died in Kiriath Arba. Sorry, interject again that it's a bit of sarcasm, because they probably feel a bit confused why it's not a perfect thing to have children, but they don't know why, and that happens to us today as well. So that's why we're learning here to know we need to learn constantly what is right and wrong. So Sarah lived for 120 years and died in Kiriath Arba, which is Hebron in Canaan or Canaan. So now this is the end of Sarah's life, Abraham's wife's life. Doesn't seem very sad. It just says it in one sentence, but it's just all said in one sentence in this Old Testament. It is the history that brings the importance, the feelings. It's the importance of it that brings the feelings. It's all been one sentence lines. It's a shocking fact that, the amazingness of this story is just the historical importance of it. Abraham went in to mourn over Sarah and to weep for her. At last he rose and left the presence of the dead. He said to the Hittites, I am an alien and a settler among you. Give me land enough for a burial place, so that I can give my dead proper burial. The Hittites answered Abraham, Do pray, listen to what we have to say, sir. You are a mighty prince among us. Bury your dead in the best grave we have. There is not one of us who will deny you his grave or hinder you from burying your dead. So that's pretty good. He's still doing very well. Yeah. Abraham stood up and then bowed low to the Hittites, the people of that country. he said to them, I'm sure he said earlier it was another people, not the Hittites, but there were many peoples in Canaan. It's a big area. We were laughing at before. It was a familiar name we use. Anyway, not the Hittites, someone else. Anyway, here he's suddenly in a different tribal group. He said to them, if you are willing to let me give my dead proper burial, then listen to me and speak for me to Ephron, son of Zohar, asking him to give me the cave that belongs to him at Machpelah. That's the famous name of a place. People have used places in these stories to name their own places in the Western Europe here in England. So Machpelah is a name that's been used. At the far end of his land, let him give it to me for the full price, so that I may take possession of it as a burial place within your territory. And I think that becomes the burial place for all his family descendants for the next 3-4 generations, like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. So the next 2 generations, sorry. Maybe Joseph as well, so 3. Joseph is the son of Jacob. Ephron the Hittite was sitting with the others, and he gave Abraham this answer in the hearing of everyone as they came into the city gate. No, sir, hear what I have to say. I will make you a gift of the land, and will also give you the cave which is on it. So he really loves him, he's really generous. So he's a really popular guy. Probably because he won the war against the strongest king and didn't choose to become the king of the whole land. Such humbleness is amazing. What I was saying earlier about faith humbleness, where they live off the land and are prepared to just be happy and enjoy living off the land. It's called the good life. Enjoying like red chilies growing on this chili plant, he'd be enough happy with that to live and not want to be king, just to be happy with his, all fruits. Tropical fruits maybe in that area, but I'm not quite sure. Anyway, in the presence of all my kinsmen I give it to you, so bury your dead. Abraham bowed low before the people of the country and said to Ephron in their hearing, if you really mean it, but do listen to me, I give you the price of the land. Take it, and I will bury my dead there. And Ephron answered, do listen to me, sir. The land is worth 400 shekels of silver. But what is that between you and me? There you may bury your dead. Abraham came to an agreement with him and weighed out the amount that Ephron had named in the hearing of the Hittites. So it is, no, not this, different. Hittites. 400 shekels of the standard recognized by merchants. So even though we've learned it's a very poor area, there are merchants, that is salesmen, that is businessmen who have products that they travel to other countries to buy, like, maybe pots and pans, and bring them to Canaan and then sell them there. So they have merchants. So it's this. They say that the oldest form of business, is prostitution, but it's not. It's just normal things in farming, selling normal things for farming and cooking and household stuff. Thus the plot of land belonging to Ephron at Machpelah to the east of Mamre, the plot, the cave that is on it, every tree on the plot within the whole area became the legal possession of Abraham in the presence of all the Hittites. So maybe it's his first bit of land that he owns in agreement with other people, as opposed to just living there because nobody's there. I don't know. But it's sad that it has to be the grave of his wife that he first gets. So I suppose you would say he wasn't shrewd as a businessman to go out being nice to people and, therefore, having oversight or rule over the land. People would say he doesn't want to, he wants just the good life. But perhaps it was necessary, to maintain the good life, to have a ruler over it all. But certainly later on, with the first king of Israel, the first king of Jacob, who becomes, his name changes like from Abram to Abraham, from Jacob to Israel. And the first king of Israel is Saul, and God doesn't want him to be king, and he replaces him with David, simply because God doesn't want a king at all. He's maybe another test. It's like God is testing them. He's saying, I give up on you being king. Maybe sarcastically, deliberately, directly to them, to test them, to push them, are we good kings or not? To get them to try and be good kings, because they inevitably want to be good kings, and maybe God knows that he created us, but God knows he has to sort of say, I don't want you to be king, just to push our minds psychologically to say, I want to be king, and to do a better job of it than just saying, okay, I'll make you king, and then you make a mistake, rather than saying, and instead he says, I don't want you to be king, and people start King Saul and David try and be a good king, but maybe it doesn't work, because they have a lot of fights between each other. Or Saul is so jealous he goes right after David. We'll find out. So after this, Abraham buried his wife Sarah in the cave on the plot of land at Machpelah, to the east of Mamre, which is Hebron in Canaan. Thus the plot and the cave on it became Abraham's possession as a burial place, purchased from the Hittites. So it's repeating it again to show the importance of it. But he was really upset, and obviously he was there a long time. And to mourn somebody is to give emotional sadness. Is to say, it's to stay at a funeral and be sad, just to emotionally recover and find some peace, to mourn somebody's death. And one of the blessings of Jesus, he said, is that those who mourn will be comforted by God. Okay, so bless you and have a lovely day, and we'll keep learning. Amen.